Hello, my name is Jerome Young, and some of you know me as Mr. Facebook because I'm always on Facebook all the time. What I want to do with this video today is to just briefly give you an account of my testimony about how I got free from homosexuality. A lot of you have read my testimony, or I may have told you face to face about it, but I think it's something else just to allow someone to hear you say that you've been set free. So I like to start with my testimony. Um, I was just like many African American people in the 70s, 80s. I was born in a single parent home. I never had the opportunity to meet my father. He left before I was even born. So it was just me, my mom, my aunt Sweet, and a few little friends around the neighborhood who would help my mother, my uncle Robert, but for the most part, it was just me and my mom. So um, I had a good childhood. Nothing bad happened, nothing traumatic. My elementary school was cool. I had friends, I had good friends and everything. But once I got into the seventh grade in high school, that's when things for me began to change. When I was in the seventh grade, I was teased by other classmates, mainly guys, and they would call me Kool Aid. And I was confused about why they would call me something like Kool Aid. And I later found out that it meant that I was sweet. And I didn't know anything about what sweet was or gay. I've heard the term sissy, which meant you just feminine. But as for being gay, wanting to have sex with someone of the same sex or sex period, I mean, I was totally blind. I didn't know anything about that. And I didn't learn much about the birds and bees. Mainly what I learned was from TV, from hearsay, whatever. So I really didn't know a lot about sex or anything. My mother wasn't comfortable about it, so I didn't get anything from her either. So, but I went through high school with that image in my head, even though they only went maybe through my seventh grade year. That still stuck in my head. Once I got older, nope, they didn't call me that name. They may call me other names, but not that name. But at any rate, you know, my self esteem went down because of that. I began to wonder about myself. I before this, I had no attraction to guys. I mean, I thought I was supposed to be automatically a man with a woman, and I had no desire to be with a man. And it wasn't until my later high school years that I began to wonder about men and whether or not know what to do with them. Not necessarily sexually, but I think I was more interested in just looking at them. I wasn't interested in sex at the time. I would like to see the physiques of different men, and just see I guess compare. Wish I had what they had because I was short, still am. I'm 5'5", and skinny and everything, and all these other guys, basketball players over 6 feet, you know, nicely built, and I'm over here skinny, and I mean, I just didn't like who I was. I was a nerd. I was a geek. I was popular only because I was so smart. It had nothing to do with me being popular. So I was known as the book guy and everything. So at any rate, moving forward to college, I was still wondering about sex and everything and men and the anatomy. So I began doing something crazy. I started going to different places, restrooms or what have you, just looking at men or whatever. Just wondering, what they have. And on one occasion, I got caught. A man caught me looking, and he asked me to come into his stall. It was a two stall bathroom in a public restroom at a bank downtown. So I went into this stall. He grabbed me, just looking at me and everything, and he next thing I know, he performed oral sex, and I lost my virginity in a bathroom. So I mean, and from that, it just escalated from there. I mean, the feeling, the rush that I felt from that one moment, that that connected me, and I wanted more. So I mean, I got more from that guy at some point, and then other men. I started doing other sex acts as I grew older. So I mean, I went from being a virgin until I was 18 until to just going all wild out, and just having sex, with random people, 4 or 5 a day. I mean, I was just all out. I mean, just like a guy would, be, a hoe with, different women. I was just doing it with guys. So, and I felt that with women, they didn't like me. I didn't have a lot of self esteem, and I didn't have the courage to ask any out. But with men, they would pursue me. They would look at me and say, oh, "Okay, I like you," and I was feeling like I was accepted by somebody when someone would, choose me to, have sex with. So, I mean, there's just so many factors that I could just go on and on about. But I'm gonna move forward. Um, as I got into my 20s, I got in a couple of relationships. One was very abusive, not physically, but mainly verbally. We It was a bad relationship. Yet it lasted almost 4 years, and I mean, we both made mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes. I cheated and cheated and cheated, and I really used that person because I mean, I was not in love with him. He was in love with me, but I wasn't in love with him. I was just doing it for the sex, and you know, when I didn't want from him, I would go to somewhere else to get it. So, I mean, I did treat that person bad, but we both did our share in that relationship. But the next relationship, I fell in love, and that was like 6 months later, and I guess my heart changed. I wanted more. I didn't want just a random booty call. I wanted a relationship with somebody. I wanted someone to love me, someone to spend time with, to laugh with. And that second relationship only lasted 7 months, but I mean, it was a positive relationship. And then maybe a couple of years later, I got with another person who I thought I was going to marry. Go figure. But, fortunately, he had convictions about our relationship and about the lifestyle, so that ended as well. Well, all in between all this, in 2002, when I was 27, well, almost 27, it was February 2002, February 24th to be exact, I was saved at Greater Amani Church, and I might as well just have gone to the bathroom and just dipped. I mean, because even though I was now technically saved, I wasn't living saved. I was still having sex. I was still cussing, still doing everything I did before I got saved. I just felt that this was considered as fire insurance. So that's all. That's all it was to me. It was not anything. I didn't have any life changing experience, whatever. I still felt it was okay for me to go around sleeping with whoever, doing whatever with whoever, saying whatever I wanted to say, and just all out of sin. And this went on for another 2 years before I joined my current church, which is New Direction Christian Church, led by Pastor Stacy Spencer. Excuse me. And um, still after that, initially I was still doing my dirt, still having sex, still in relationships with men. And it wasn't until I broke up with that last person that I began to actually participate in church. Before that, when I was at Greater Money, and even when I first joined New Direction, I was in and out. I go to the early service, get my word in, get out, and find the next victim, if you know what I mean. So I mean, nothing was changing, but through a couple of people, including Elder Larry, who convinced me to sing with the men's choir for Mother's Day, and I've been singing with them ever since. 6, 7 years now. And also Pastor Kelvin Turner, who was a pastor at our church at the time, and he encouraged me to go to the men's Bible study. So here I am going to men's Bible study. Before this, men were just sex objects. I didn't really have any friends, male friends, who were not gay. All the male friends I had were gay. So this was the first time that I was around a group of men who were not gay, who, had no intentions of wanting to do anything with me aside from being my brother. So that was the beginning of me learning to have a appropriate relationship with a man. And all in this, I joined a cell group or a small group, and also I began to read the Bible. Before I was reading the King James Version, which went in one ear and out the other. I didn't understand it. I mean, yea, though I walk in thou shalt not. I mean, that was beyond my comprehension, and that was the Bible that my old church used for the most part. Either that or the New King James. Either way, I mean, it was confusing to me. So I got introduced to the NIV version of the Bible, and with the NIV version, it was a lot easier for me to read. So I was able to actually start reading the Bible. I went from Genesis to Exodus. I got to Leviticus. I think some of you know where this is going. I got to Leviticus 18. Yeah, that one. I believe it's 18:22. I don't know it by heart, but I do know it says that you shall not sleep with another man as you would with a woman. And all these years, my stepfather and other people had told me that it was wrong, but nobody ever showed me where it was in the Bible or whatever. So I found it for myself that was wrong. And at that point, I was convicted. I was like, okay, after 30 years, I finally see that this is wrong. So what am I going to do about it? Well, on New Year's 2005, I made the decision to give up my desires to be with men. I decided not to be with any other men. So we had a burning service at my church, and we put different things that we wanted to get rid of in the new year for 2006. And I said I want to get rid of homosexuality. I didn't want to be gay anymore. So I threw it in the fire, and it burnt. So I was like, okay, I feel free. So I went to 2006 and went through the first 4 months, and I managed not to do anything with anybody. And at that time, that was a record. So before that, from when I turned 18 and lost my virginity until that point, which I was 30, I had never gone more than 2 weeks without having sex. In most cases, it may have been, I take that back, 2 months. 2 months. There was one point in which it was 2 months. And that was while I was in a relationship. Other than that, no more than 2 weeks. And that was only one occasion in which it was 2 months. So, but other than that, I mean, I had a high sex drive. I was having sex all the time. So the fact that I went 4.5 months without doing anything was a miracle for me. But I'm human. I fail after some point during, I guess it got hot, it was May, got hot, Memorial Day time. So, I mean, I failed quite a few times during that summer, that spring, late spring, early summer. And during this time, I actually told a few guys who were straight about my past, and that was hard for me to do. But I praise God that each one of those men, Lawrence and Brandon, and I believe Bobby Downs, they were all just so supportive and loving in spite of my confessions. And eventually I told a few other guys, but man, at this time I only told a few, and it was scary. But fortunately, the guys who I go to church with are very open-minded and loving and non-judgmental. So instead of chastising me, they encouraged me and said that they still love me as a brother. But in the meantime, I was still falling. The last time I fell was on the 30th of July, 2006. So on that day, I had a sexual encounter with another guy. And after he left, I felt dirty. As a matter of fact, each time I had sex that year, which was 5 different occasions, I felt dirty. it wasn't the same. I didn't get that same rush that I felt, the same relaxation. I felt dirty. I felt wrong. That's because God had finally taken control over me. He actually got into my head and let me know, reminded me, this is wrong. I don't want you to do this anymore. And I cried out to God. After he left and I cleaned myself up, I asked God, please, Lord, please. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of falling. I don't want to fall ever again with this. Lord, please help me. I want to live the way you want me to live. That was, once again, July 30th of 2006. And that was the last time that I was intimate with another man. I praise God that it's been now almost 5.5 years since I've done that. Today is December the 11th of 2011. So it's been close to 5.5 years since I've been with another man. Have I wanted to at times fall? Yeah, of course, I'm human. But it's just like a man who used to be a playboy and now has decided to stay celibate or get married and not cheat on his woman, or not even have sex. Yes, you're going to still have temptations because that's a familiarity to you. However, if you want to live as God lived, you're not going to do that. So I praise God that I have been able to maintain celibacy, and it hasn't been easy. I struggle with masturbation, and I'm finally getting that into order. And in the midst of all this, I never thought I would do a video about this or tell anyone, but I felt the need to do this. I met a friend of mine. Well, a friend of mine had another friend who lived in New York, and he would go out of town to give testimonies about his deliverance from homosexuality. And son told me, you know what? I would like to do that someday. It took a while for me to do that, but little by little things started happening. I started posting things on Facebook and MySpace when I had a MySpace account, and even Twitter. And then about 2 years ago, I managed to announce it when I was on during a church service. I had no intentions of doing it, but it just happened. And I still got a lot of love and support from my church family. And this past August, I did an interview for a radio station, a AM radio station, 1240 AM, and talked about my testimony there. So I know a lot of people didn't get a chance to see that or hear that, I should say. But with this, I think a lot of people will be able to hear this testimony. And I'm not doing this to bash those who are still in the lifestyle. I still have friends who are in that lifestyle. I mean, do I agree with what they do? No, I don't. But I also have friends who still sleep around with other women, or women who sleep around with other men. I don't agree with what they do. However, I'm not going to end my friendship with them because of that. That being said, if you ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell you, no, I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong. I pray that one day that, you end what you're doing in that lifestyle. But in the meantime, I'm still going to love you. And that's something that's very important. You cannot just treat people like dirt just because you find out that they're gay or living in sin. That's the time that you love them, and then be an example of how to live right. And the more you surround them with that, and more, and take your stance, not necessarily, condemn them, tell them they're going to hell, but just love them in spite of their sin, and just show them the right way, living by yourself, just yourself living holy, then just praying for them. Then I believe that someone can change, because that's what happened with me. Because I know my mother and father had to pray for me, because to have gone through all I've gone through, all the encounters I've had, and not to have HIV or something, that's a blessing. So I think just praying for that person is very important. But just for anyone who might be struggling, not only with homosexuality, but any sexual sin, any sin period, alcoholism, drug addiction, anything like that that you want to come out of, I want you to know that I am a living witness that you can come out of whatever sin that you are in. But you just have to give it to Jesus. You got to give it to God, both of them. You got to make sure that, you're able to release that and let God handle it, and that's what I had to do. And once you've given it to God, then He can do anything. He can heal anything. He can get you out of any situation. He can change a murderer into a preacher. He can turn me from homosexual to holy. He can change anyone. I promise you. And that's why I want to do this. I want you to know out there, I want you to know that you can change. This was not an easy task because I don't like to talk. I don't like to do videos like this, but I felt that this was very important because someone needs this. Someone needs to hear this. So I pray that whoever hears this takes it and just apply it to their lives and just know that you can be saved. God bless all of you.